Today we're here to talk about scald injury. It doesn't get much publicity, but it's a very common injury. As many as 160,000 people in America receive medical treatment for a scald injury every year. 10,000 babies are born in the United States every day, and these young lives are at higher risk of scald injury than the rest of the population. The population is growing older too, with many older adults being healthier and alert as ever. Others in that age group are increasingly at risk of burn injury. We hope this program will make you more aware of these hazards and help you to reduce them in the lives of older adults. This program was prepared by professionals who are familiar with the burn hazards that face these high-risk groups. Who would you expect that to be? This campaign was put together by educators from the fire service, burn care, and safety organizations whose logos appear on the slide, with funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. Firefighters and other emergency service professionals in these organizations increasingly are cross-trained and coordinate their efforts in the field. This has led to their common interest in supporting burn care and preventing all types of burn injury. In many regions, they have joined with burn care professionals and other community leaders to create separate burn support organizations. Such groups typically support burn centers and burn survivors and educate the public about burn prevention. Now let's look at the overall picture of burn injury. So how many deaths and injuries do you think occur every year from burns? Some 4,000 people a year die from fire and burn injuries in the United States. Most of those with severe burn injuries who don't die at the scene are transported immediately to a burn center. About 125 U.S. hospitals and another 20 in Canada have specialized centers. Physicians, nurses, therapists, and other members of the burn teams at these centers treat up to 30,000 burn patients each year. Over 40% of burn injuries treated in hospital emergency departments, or as many as 160,000, are scalds, and about one-third of admissions to burn centers are for scald injuries. This last statistic changes significantly, however, when it comes to young children. Scalds are by far the most common burn experienced by young children. As many as 75% of all burn injuries to children 4 and under are scalds. So how does a scald injury look, and what are some dangerous attitudes about scalds? As you can see, hot liquids do produce serious and painful burns, and they are usually very unexpected. Now let's look at how we can develop some protection against common scald hazards in our lives. So what is a scald injury? A scald injury occurs when contact with hot liquid or steam damages one or more layers of the skin. It's usually caused by a spill of hot food or beverages, or by hot tap water in a bath or shower. So in discussing scald injury, we'll look at several questions. We're going to talk about the frequent causes of scald injury, who suffers most frequently from scalds, and how can scald injury be prevented. We hope none of you, your children, or anyone you know has ever suffered a scald injury or ever will. So what are the frequent causes of scald injury? The main sources of scald injury are spills of hot coffee and tea, spills of hot food tipped from the stove or countertop or being carried, spills of food or beverages cooked or heated in a microwave oven, hot tap water, mostly from accidents in the bath or shower, and steam escaping in a work environment. So who are the most frequent victims of scalds? In our burn prevention efforts, we focus on two groups who are the most vulnerable to injury: young children and older adults. People in these groups are especially at risk of suffering a scald injury. But which of these groups suffers the most scald injuries? If you guessed children, you're correct. And if you had young children in mind, you're right on target. Young children dominate scald statistics, and scalds dominate among burns in young children. 40% of all scald injuries are suffered by children ages 0 to 4, and those scald injuries represent 2/3 of the burn injuries suffered by young children. So why are young children especially at risk for scald injury? It shouldn't be hard to understand why young children are especially at risk of burn injury in general, and scald injury in particular. Young children are curious by nature, and they learn a lot by imitating adults. They'll do this without realizing that hot foods and liquids or hot tap water can be dangerous. Often they're just trying to be helpful, especially with younger children. Many scald injuries occur when young children are watching or trying to help even younger children. So if they do suffer a scald injury, why is it likely to be especially severe? Because they are less mobile, they react less quickly if they do come in contact with hot substances and objects. And because they have thinner skin than older children and adults, they suffer burn injury at a lower temperature with a shorter exposure. Finally, spilling a cup of hot tea or coffee, which is most likely to happen when it's full, can affect a large part of a small child's body. This would cause a much larger injury than spilling the same amount on an adult. Older adults are also vulnerable to scald injury. What are some reasons older adults are at more risk? Older adults also have thinner skin than those of the in-between ages. The same contact with a heat source that burns a young adult will cause an even deeper burn than an older adult. The mobility gained as one reaches adulthood may now be declining. The decline may take the form of slower, awkward gait, muscle weakness or fatigue, and slower reflexes. As with small children, reduced mobility leaves older adults less able to react quickly to an injury source and get out of danger. They may not see as well and may be generally less aware of their surroundings, even when they're familiar with them. Older adults may not feel heat on their skin as well as they used to. This can result from health conditions such as diabetes or medications which dull the senses. These conditions delay and complicate recovery from injury. So where do scald injuries occur? The main settings of scald injury are in the kitchen, dining, and bathing areas of our homes. Scalds in kitchen and dining areas typically happen when a young child pulls hot beverages or hot food down on themselves from tables, stoves, or countertops. They can also happen when they pull on a pot handle, a tablecloth, or the cord of a countertop appliance. Other scalds occur when adults are jostled while holding a restless child in their arms or on their lap while drinking hot coffee or tea. In still other cases, an adult slips or loses their grip while removing hot food from a stove or oven or carrying it to a table. This can happen while they're alone or when they're bumped into by a child who may suffer a serious scald from the spill. The most common bathroom scalds result when the child is left unattended in a bathtub. An older adult may slip or faint and pull the shower control into the hot position while attempting to brace themselves. Scalds in the bath or shower often involve long exposure and cover large areas of the body. The result can be a serious injury with a lengthy recovery. The length of exposure is only one of several factors that determine the severity of a scald injury. What else is involved? The nature of the substance matters. The stickier or heavier the substance involved, the more likely it will retain heat and stick to the body or to the clothes on the body. Oatmeal and spaghetti sauce heated close to the boiling point, for example, will cause a more severe injury than hot water at the same temperature. The temperature and the length of contact with the scalding substance are the main factors affecting scald severity. The clothes on which a substance is spilled retain heat until they're removed. A spill of small size may affect a large area of a child's body. A cup of coffee, for example, could burn 25% of a toddler's body. Scald burns to the face, hands, feet, or private areas of the body can be difficult to heal and affect their function for a long time. Now let's look at 3 types of actions we can take to prevent scalds in the kitchen, dining, and bathroom areas. It may help to protect your children from scald injury if you think about it in 3 time frames. You can make some changes in risk-prone areas which have a long-term impact. You can take certain steps right before children are in the area where you're preparing hot food or beverages. And you can protect children while they're in the immediate area when you're cooking and dining. So what can you do well ahead of time to make your kitchen and dining areas as safe as possible for children? While nothing can take place of close supervision, certain household modifications can have a long-acting impact on scald injury risk to young children. Draw the boundary of a no-kid zone on the floor or mark it with tape. At a very young age, children can understand no when it refers to entering that zone. Avoid using tablecloths when children are little. Use placemats with a non-slip surface instead. Use spill-resistant travel mugs as hot beverage containers. They have tight lids and can only be opened by pushing a lever. So just remember, got a kid? Get a lid. What should you do to keep children safe while using appliances on the countertop? Make sure you leave enough space on your countertops to place pots and dishes when you're transferring hot food. With the increasing use of electric crock pots and fryers, countertops are increasingly crowded. Store elsewhere any items you rarely use. Appliances like these normally come with extensive safety directions. Since we can't cover all the safety guidelines for each appliance named in this program, it's very important that you read and observe the safety guidelines in these instruction booklets. We won't repeat this for every appliance mentioned, but it's very important. So what are some guidelines that apply to all countertop cooking appliances? Keep countertop appliances far enough back from the counter edge to avoid the risk that they might be pushed off or pulled off by their cord. Young children or even your own movements could catch on the cord and spill scalding hot food. Keep appliance cords short or coiled and to the rear of the appliance if possible. Since most countertop cooking appliances are now manufactured with short cords, place appliances where extension cords are not needed. Now here are some everyday precautions you can take before small children are in the immediate area. Note especially the visitor rule. When friends, relatives, and babysitters arrive, you can tell them just what activities a small child is getting into lately, involving the kitchen and dining areas. Even the most frequent visitors and caretakers may be unaware of recent growth progress that can place toddlers even more at risk of scald injury. For example, household members may know they need to keep hot coffee cups off low tables a child has just learned to reach, but a visitor may not. If a toddler discovers and spills a cup of hot coffee placed on the table by a visitor, the resulting burn could cover a large area of a small child's body and require burn center care. We've noted that little kids are prone to pulling on pot handles. Be sure to use rear stove burners when possible and always turn pot handles away from the stove edge when you start cooking. The following safety-oriented behaviors will further reduce the risk of scald injury when young children are underfoot. The best way to make household modifications and everyday preparations effective is to keep track of what young children are doing at all times. Inattention can undermine safety measures you put in place. The most dangerous place may be in the arm or lap of an adult who is preparing or serving hot food or drinking a hot beverage. If a child bumps the arm holding the hot food or drink, the resulting spill could cause a serious injury. Keep hot food and liquids high and out of reach of young children. Since microwave ovens don't always heat foods and beverages evenly, stir and test hot food portions before serving children. Now, what other areas of the kitchen deserve attention to protect both children and older adults? The kitchen floor can become dangerous when food or beverages spill. Use non-slip mats near the stove and sink and wherever else you do most of your food preparation. When you've spilled anything while preparing or cooking a meal, be sure to wipe it up immediately. A neglected spill could be a hazard later when you're serving food or cleaning up. And finally, when you're ready to serve cooked food, use oven mitts or heavy-duty pot holders to pick up pots and serving dishes, and make sure your path to the kitchen or dining room table is unobstructed. Now, what safety guidelines apply to microwave ovens? Microwave ovens should be located on countertops, not mounted above the stove. Such devices should be located on countertops at an appropriate height for anyone in the household who might use them, so they can reach them safely. Hot food and beverages, which are difficult to reach above the stove, could spill while being removed and cause scald injury to the face and hands. Use only microwave-safe dishes and cookware to heat foods and beverages. Always allow the food and beverages to cool down for a minute before removing them from a microwave oven. Avoid using microwave ovens to heat baby bottles, and don't allow young children to use microwave ovens themselves. Mix combined or compartmented dish contents before serving. Microwave ovens don't always heat food evenly. Thus far we've discussed scalds in the home. We need for a moment to consider scald risk away from the home. Scalds to young children can be an unexpected risk when the family is away from their home or apartment. At a restaurant, there may not be as much space. The kids might be excited about the new environment, and parents might not have focused right away on safety. Try to make new safety procedures, like no kids zone, a priority before preparing hot food or hot beverages in any new dining setting, no matter how temporary. Make sure grandparents and other caretakers create kid-safe environments and procedures in their homes. Now the following slide shows how exposure to hot water can cause a serious scald injury. This photo shows how hot bath water can be a special risk for people with such health conditions as diabetes, circulatory problems, or paralysis. These conditions may limit their ability to sense heat, especially in their extremities. The blisters on this diabetic patient's foot and the sharp line between burned and unburned skin are typical of such an injury. The injury happened when the patient placed her feet in water which she couldn't feel was dangerously hot. Burns to the feet can result in extended disability. The same limited blood flow that reduces sensitivity to the risk of injury can result in lower healing time for the injured area. Now, do you know what is a safe water temperature? Have you tested the water temperature in your home or apartment? As this table demonstrates, a safe and comfortable temperature for bathing is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius. When water gets much hotter, most of us soon get uncomfortable. The time and temperature combinations on this slide show the scald injury risk from hot water for healthy adults. Research has shown it would take up to 5 minutes exposure before water at 120 degrees Fahrenheit would cause a serious burn to the normal adult. The higher the temperature, the less time it would take to cause such a burn. The point to emphasize here is that researchers set these standards for normal, healthy adults. They didn't modify these estimates for young children or older adults whose skin is much thinner. You can imagine how hard it would be to do such a study. Our only experience with temperatures at which hot water injures those with thinner skin has come from measuring hot water after a scald injury has occurred. It's not enough to provide separate time and temperature estimates for scald injury to people in these groups. To reduce the number of injuries from hot tap water, the following standards have been recommended or established by law. In the bathing area, household modifications for scald safety apply to all ages, especially young children and older adults. The risk of scald injury in the bathroom can be greatly reduced by setting your water heater thermostat at a safe level, where little or no cold water needs to be added for bathing or showering comfort. Several devices may provide added protection, especially if your household includes anyone who has limited mobility, but normally bathes or showers without help. Some are designed to be directly related to water temperature, while others may prevent falls that could lead to scald injury. Unlike the thermostats that control house heating systems, water heater thermostats don't usually have temperature settings. So how can we measure the actual water temperature? For the safety of everyone in the household, test the temperature of the hot water produced by your heater using a cooking thermometer. Begin by letting the water run for a minute or two to allow the hot water from the tank to reach the faucet. Then place the thermometer under the tap and record the temperature as the water runs over it. Now the next two slides describe the types of equipment that can reduce the risk of scald injury. Tempering or mixing valves establish a junction between the hot and regular water lines, somewhere between the hot water heater and the individual bath or shower control. When hot water passes through such a valve, it mixes in cool water when needed to reduce the temperature to a specified safe level. Although such devices are most easily installed during initial construction, they can also be installed later. The alternative direct approach is to install an anti-scald device at the shower head or any faucet which combines hot and cold water. Screwing such a valve on the fixture ordinarily doesn't require a professional. These devices work by halting the flow of hot water until the temperature of the water flowing through the valve falls below a preset maximum level. Such temperature control devices can be especially important in protecting those with limited mobility who still bathe or shower without help. In multifamily housing, temperature control devices may be especially useful if the average hot water temperature varies greatly from one unit to the next. Now, what can be done to prevent falls in the tub or shower? Grab bars can be installed on the walls to help bathers enter and exit the tub or shower safely. These bars prevent falls that could involve grabbing or simply hitting the tub or shower control. This action could turn the control to an unsafe level, leaving the bather unable to escape scalding water. As scald prevention devices, non-slip bath mats and shower bath chairs serve the same purpose. They also reduce the risk that someone with limited mobility will fall in the shower, grab the control valve while falling, and become trapped in scalding hot water. Once you've done all you can by way of equipment and modifications, what precautions can you practice immediately before a bath or shower to protect a young child or an adult with limited mobility? If the shower has a single control, which pulls to turn on and off and rotates to change its temperature, always turn it on and off in the cold position. If the bath or shower has separate hot and cold controls, always turn the cold faucet on first and turn it off last. This will prevent undiluted concentrations of hot water from causing a scald injury. Make sure everyone in your household understands how your bath and shower controls function before they use them. This is especially important for temporary caregivers who may bathe young children. So what other guidelines apply to bathing young children? Bathwater temperature should be checked both when it comes from the tap and when the tub is filled. Caretaking adults should do the checking. In large families, the youngest children are often looked after, at least part of the time, by older brothers and sisters. If they have responsibility for bathing younger children, these siblings, who are still children themselves, should be instructed carefully and checked on how well they observe this rule. Young children should never be left alone in a tub. They could be tempted to turn on the hot water and suffer a serious scald injury. Many safety recommendations have been suggested in this presentation. Putting them into action begins with the recognition of the following. Scalds are preventable, and the high-risk groups are ages 0 to 4 and older adults. Now here are some important points to take away from this program. Limited mobility and thin skin contribute to both the risk and the severity of burn injury for young children and older adults. Young children should be kept out of the area when their caregivers are cooking or eating hot food and drink. Test hot water temperature and set thermostat to prevent water temperature from exceeding 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 48 degrees Celsius. And make sure all caregivers understand bath controls and water temperature guidelines.